I learned all about this stupid bird, this allegedly stupid bird.
Right. That's what the narrative is.
The narrative is that they're dumb and they died and they went extinct, and
They extinct themselves.
yeah, well,
I've heard that
kind
one.
of,
I've heard
yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
So I
Isn't
just
there a bit in a movie?
Ice Age.
Yeah, is it Ice Age? I knew there's
Might
something
be.
like where they're like just trying to die.
Yeah, it's Ice Age because they just everything they do is just the stupidest thing you've ever seen, and that's not the case at all. I learned so much about these animals that just everyone says we don't know anything except they're dumb. The bird is the dodo bird, and why they went extinct. It's extremely interesting.
I hope so. You got a page of notes there.
I got more than a page.
Oh man, he's doing the old flip, the old page too.
Yeah.
We're only on step 1.
Yep.
So, like lemurs are only they only live on Madagascar, and this island is the island that the dodos were on is actually next door neighbors to Madagascar. It's much smaller. It's called Mauritius.
It's a cool word.
And what happened was a relative of the
Sounds like an untrustworthy woman.
a relative of the dodo, which was a very pigeon-like creature, eventually flew its way to Mauritius. And I guess I should go into the background on how islands form and how things get there. It's called island biogeography. And so what happens is volcanoes create these islands. When the islands pop up, there's nothing on them. They're just it's completely bare.
Rock, yeah.
It's just rock. So eventually, over time, soil's created. The easiest thing that can get to islands is seeds. Seeds get there through the water and through the air, and they typically get there much quicker than anything else does.
I know the islands that you go visit, they're very particular, especially these ones with fragile ecosystems. They make you put your shoes through some sanitation system because people don't realize it, but they'll have seeds on their shoes. One invasive seed goes off, they got weeds everywhere, it kills everything.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm actually looking at getting a book on this because how in depth this goes is insane.
You can read one every 2 weeks then.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Further our knowledge base.
So annoying. Yeah.
So
funny.
seeds make it to the islands first, and because it's volcanic soil, it's super nutrient rich, and so plants just flourish there immediately. And then as far as animals getting there, it's typically next in line is birds because they can fly. They can get there, whereas the only way for land animals to get there is you have to be able to swim hundreds of miles.
Sure.
Not likely. So that's what was happening on Mauritius. The plants come in through seeds that floated through the air or floated on the ocean there, and then the birds came in. The birds got there and they're like, "Holy crap! There's seeds and fruit everywhere." They're the first ones to get there, and so they flourished. Because of the distance, nothing else was really able to get there other than birds. And the way there's a more in-depth explanation of this, but for this scenario, imagine getting to an island like this. You're standing on a piece of land and you're looking way out there. On a smaller scale, imagine standing at a target range and someone puts 2 bars next to you and says, you have to shoot the target way out there. But you can only go between these 2 points. So you're looking out there and you're just going to go that way. And you have to try to shoot that target. If the target's 3 feet in front of you, perfectly easy to get there. The chances of you hitting that target, if you close your eyes and shoot, the likelihood's great.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's 100 yards out and someone's like, aim and shoot with your eyes closed, it's completely impossible nearly to get there. So
what is that?
So that what the correlation being, if you're standing on one of the continents and you're looking out at the ocean, you don't see anything. So
the odds of you landing on the island are slim.
Because of ratios. So
it's the same thing when you're target practicing with a rifle. You know, you could be off by a quarter inch at 100 yards. Well, that's a half inch at 200. You know, you start doubling, tripling, and the problem compounds on itself.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, in 600 yards, you're not even on the paper.
Right. So that's the correlation is pretty much the same there to how animals get there. So the distant relative of the dodo, which was pigeon-like, made it to this island because it could fly. They, over time, because they were able to flourish so well, the dodo developed smaller wings. It lost its ability to fly, and it grew a lot bigger. It started around a half foot and grew to be about 3 feet.
That was me during COVID. Yeah, I just kept eating.
And their beaks went from small little poker beaks to big bulbous beaks.
Yep, that's me.
To be able to eat fruit easier.
The beak.
Mhm. The beaks. You got one.
The dodo and the great tortoise, I believe it's called, were the dominant animals on the island. They which is crazy because neither of them are predators or meat eaters. There was no predators on the island
It's
whatsoever.
like the idiots that were popular in 7th grade. You know,
Right.
they had no idea what the real world's gonna be like.
No.
So, because of having no predation, no predators on the island whatsoever, them losing their wings, they didn't need their wings to be able to fly. They grew big because they didn't really need to be small and be able to fly.
Nothing can touch me.
Essentially. And they lived like that for so long that they lost all instinctual fear. So,
Because they passed
So
it down
many
through
generations.
Yeah.
yep,
Jeez.
nothing
Can hurt us.
Nothing can hurt us.
Now,
So,
was the dodo only on this island?
yes.
And that's because it basically evolved from something else.
Over time, it just turned into this other thing that didn't.
So was there another thing that was the dodo before the dodo became the dodo?
Yeah, it was.
Is that still around?
Are
Are they dumb too?
I
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I said they're not dumb. I just said that.
It has a relative, but I don't know. It's like now so distant. It's hard to say. Like, it's like its sister species.
Gotcha.
So in 1638, when colonization started to get big, the Dutch came to this island, and when they came to this,
Oh, these fat, ugly birds.
yeah, basically, they said about the dodo, they were so fearless. They had, for so long, no predators, never being killed. They were so fearless, you could walk right up to them and club them in the head and just kill them.
Wow.
They just stand there and look at you. And so, like that's where it comes. They're like, these birds are dumb.
I wonder how they tasted. Because they got big and fat and plump,
Right?
you know?
They probably ate 'em.
And eat fruit. You'd have to imagine
Yeah.
they tasted okay.
Yeah.
But
Or if it was white or dark.
the bigger problem to the
You're wondering.
humans coming to the island was what they brought with them. They brought dogs. They brought cats, rats.
The cats is everything. The cats is enough to ruin the whole deal.
They brought pigs also, and monkeys.
Monkeys, dude?
Yeah, for some reason the Dutch were carrying around monkeys with them, and
Food source?
I don't
Because
know.
that's why everything else had a food source thing to it.
I don't know, but so they were released onto this island at some point because they were trying to colonize the island, and what these animals experienced is basically what the dodos experienced, where they're like, look at all this food, this is amazing. However, this time the dodos were the food.
Right.
yeah.
So, which in return made the island,
Who named them? Do you know?
it has a few different names.
Who came up with dodo?
I don't know who came up with dodo. I
Probably
think
short
I
for
think
Dodo extra.
I'm seeing where
I don't think so. I think dodo is just like, oh, it's dodo.
It could be.
But it's
Yeah,
got quite a few
slang.
different names. So in return to the Dutch bringing all these animals, trying to colonize bringing all the animals and trying to colonize these animals that they brought, killed off one of the food sources there that made them not even be able to stay at the island.
And they can't fly.
And because these animals had so much food, they were able to go reproduce and just take the island over
Oh, they took
immediately.
over.
And along with Dodo's the biggest example on this island. However, along with the dodo, nearly 12 other species were
Wiped out.
deemed extinct after this had happened.
Thanks, Dutch.
The time frame from the Dutch trying to colonize.
That's what a Dutch rudder is. yeah. That's why they
You're
call
the
it that.
double Dutch.
Yeah.
So from the time the Dutch arrived and tried to colonize in 1638 to 1662. 1662 was the last time anyone ever saw a dodo. Less than 30 years, the dodo was gone.
I kind of like to go there now just to see if one's creeping around.
Yeah, so I looked at it on maps, and it's totally colonized. There's people everywhere on the island now.
Well, they got to go.
Yeah.
I'm going there.
And then I don't want them there when we're there.
No.
So the term that the dodos experience is called island tameness because it's such a localized ecosystem.
Because I'm an island boy. What is it?
Because it's so localized, they didn't have to. They learned what they learned, and that was it. Without any outside influence, they would have been perfectly fine. But because external forces were brought in on them, that was their demise.
Well, that's anything, right?
Essentially, and then they also experienced island gigantism, which is basically you're flourishing so well that
we saw that in Hawaii with some people.
Yeah, you can just get big and fat, and it doesn't really matter. Whereas there is
I want to be on that diet.
There's also island dwarfism, which some elephants experience.
It's like stunting.
Yeah, there's not enough on the island, so they have to grow smaller to be able to survive and eat less.
Jeez.
And it was they're all extinct now, but there was a lot.
I saw that in the Journey movies.
Yep.
There's
It's true. He's a small elephant. The Rock could hold him.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of what they were like. The pictures of the drawings of them is like there was like a swan standing next to one of these elephants. They're dwarf-sized elephants that just lived on these islands. Eventually, they went extinct.
I would want one of those for a pet.
They look kind of cute.
You know, the other thing is, too, though, is like the stunting can happen in a lake even or a pond. You know, if there's not enough food to go around, it won't be like these 7 get big and the rest die. It'll be like they all stay tiny.
So there's a term for what you're talking about, all like cave systems, lakes, ponds, forests, even national parks are qualify for this because they're so heavily monitored. They're called dryland islands. It's because it's so protected.
It's secluded.
You've created your localized ecosystem, and it's called insular biogeography is what that's called, where it's like a local ecosystem it's like the Galapagos, where it's very easy to study what's going on and what's happening in this ecosystem. Another example of the island gigantism is the elephant bird, which looked a lot like the ostrich. However, it stood 2 times taller than a human. So it was taller than the ostrich, but and that lived on Madagascar, next to Mauritius.
You know, all of this is super interesting. And one of the things that you hit on was the bird being stupid. It gets called the dodo because it was so easy to kill. That sounds like what the determining factor was. When we went buffalo hunting, and I shot my buffalo, none of the other ones ran. Mm-hmm. They all just went over and were like, "Hey, man, what's going on with you?
Are you sick?"
Yeah. What are you sick with? And at the time, my first reaction was like, "You guys are like, I'm seeing why you guys were wiped out."
Yeah,
because one gets shot in the wild and they all don't leave.
Yeah,
and they all just stay there, and it's why people were able to pick off one after the other after the other after the other because they don't run. But is it stupidity, or are they so smart that like throughout the course of their life, anytime someone's laid down in their group or something like that, it was never because they were gonna die because they died.
Right.
So it's like they were working off knowledge. Like if you put someone that played hockey their entire life and just lived in a box and played hockey and played hockey and played hockey and played hockey, and then you took them and put them on a soccer field that they had never seen before, they might be like, "Where's my stick?" And they might do things dumb or different, and you call them dumb, but it's like, no, they have knowledge. It's just not the knowledge for that situation when someone's shooting a 28 nozzler at them.
So when I was learning about this, there was it's across the entire planet, islands that operate like this, and it makes sense. There have been many, many, many birds that lived on islands that did not fly. Up until the point those external forces were brought in, they redeveloped the ability to fly because they had to. The dodo just got wiped out so fast and didn't have the opportunity. Whereas,
give them a minute.
they're birds all over the earth they had no reason to on the islands they were on. There was no external forces. As soon as that was brought in, they're like, we gotta be smaller, and we gotta have bigger wings, and we gotta be able to move fast,
and maybe quit rolling around in spices.
Yeah.
One of the other things too is like, kind of when we're talking about colonizing it, these people not only would they use these islands for colonies as far as like building houses and things like that, a lot of they would use as like restaurant stops, grocery stops, the grocery store. They'd let pigs go, and then when they come back in 2 years, they know there's pork there that they can stop and pick up food when they're on their journeys. So it's a way to have food, like create renewable resources.
Yeah.
Hawaii dealt with that. That's why they have access here. That's why they have pigs.
Yep.
And those sorts of things happening.
And what's funny is Mauritius was one of those islands. No one, the Portuguese would use that as a stop for trading spices. However, they never brought any animals with them to drop off there. They would just use it as a pit stop and never really bothered the place.
Club a few dodos and be on their way.
Oh, yeah.
And until the Dutch came in, the Dutch were like, "This is ours now," and they just destroyed it.
Yeah.
So
That's a bummer.
This is ours now.
In less than 30 years.
A little restraint and conservation would have gone a long way with the dodo.
Damn Dutch.
Luckily for us, the National Wild Turkey Federation won't let that happen to our big birds.
Exactly.